In 2022, the European Parliament overwhelmingly voted in favor of making Type-C the mandatory universal charging port for all consumer devices, until 2024. Greg Joswiak, Apple's global head of marketing, stated that Apple would have to switch to Type-C on iPhones and other devices still using Lightning to comply with the new European Union regulations. In September of this year, iPhone 15 was officially launched. Many online users criticized the biggest innovation of this iPhone as finally changing the charging interface. Since iPhone 5, Apple has been using the Lightning port for 11 consecutive years. Why did Apple wait until today to make the switch? Apple's previous explanation was for environmental reasons, as standardizing the interface would result in disposing of old devices and polluting the environment. However, what Apple didn't tell you is that by selling official accessories and authorized materials, they not only generate billions in revenue each year but also gain the capital to dominate the accessory industry. A small decision by Apple can even cost some Chinese companies the opportunity to go public. Apple's business model has even influenced the prices of the data cables we buy. Here are two old versions of Chinese-manufactured iPhone data cables. This one costs only 10 yuan, while this one sells for 50 yuan. And this is an Apple original data cable, officially priced at 145 yuan. The significant price difference is also related to Apple's influence. Today, let's talk about the decade-long trade war between Chinese and American enterprises behind this tiny iPhone data cable. In the typical mindset of most people, a small charging cable, lacking significant technological complexity, is usually purchased based on affordability. So, in the past, whether it was a Huawei or iPhone charging cable, many Chinese consumers would opt for those priced below 20 yuan. However, gradually, people discovered that when using these cheap data cables to charge an iPhone, they would often encounter pop-ups stating that the accessory may not be supported. How does Apple detect the use of counterfeit cables by users? I looked it up on the Apple official website and found that it's related to a certification called MFI. In simple terms, MFI is like an identity card issued by Apple to accessory manufacturers, and certified data cables contain a dedicated chip. The official description states that the main features of MFI accessories are safety and durability, ensuring that the cable won't cause the phone to explode during charging. Now, can you guess which of these two cables is MFI certified? It's actually the more expensive one. Companies with MFI certification must procure chips and other materials through the channels specified by Apple. The cost of purchasing a set of specialized components is around a dozen yuan. It's said that considering taxes and other costs, the minimum total production cost of a certified cable is about 20 yuan. Therefore, the price of a certified cable generally won't be less than 40 yuan. You might think this price is expensive, but it has already been reduced. 10 years ago, the import price for just one specialized component was close to 40 renminbi, and for each certified product sold, Apple would take a 30% share. Consumers are not naive. The uncertified cables are much cheaper, and they work for charging, albeit a bit slower. Therefore, consumers are more inclined to buy cheaper counterfeit cables. Moreover, for contract manufacturing enterprises, not only do they get a higher share from uncertified cables, but also obtaining MFI certification is cumbersome, with an approval rate of less than 10%. Apple subjects applicants to a very stringent assessment, sometimes even requiring companies to disclose sales and customer data. Chinese companies that have applied for MFI certification have previously complained that their relationship with Apple during cooperation is quite distorted, with Apple having the final say. Applicants have no commercial secrets, and many companies are reluctant to become transparent in front of Apple. At one point, there were only 60 MFI certified companies worldwide, and Apple wasn't pleased. They decided to clean up the accessory market. Initially, Apple's approach was simple: join forces with MFI certified companies to sue counterfeit manufacturers worldwide and demand the removal of counterfeit products. However, this strategy wasn't very effective because many counterfeit manufacturers were small operations. When discovered, they would simply shut down their operations, leaving Apple powerless. Additionally, determining infringement for accessory products was a challenging task. For instance, authorized cables have 8 metal contact points at the connector's end. The 20 yuan cable was missing 2 contact points in the middle, and whether it missed one or more wouldn't be considered infringement. There were many gray areas where manufacturers could exploit. Apple was baffled by the mysterious Eastern mysticism, and many lawsuits ended in confusion, ultimately settling out of court. It wasn't until September 2013, when Apple updated the iOS 7 system, that the system could accurately identify accessories and detect the presence of an MFI chip. Overnight, a large number of counterfeit cables became worthless. Unexpectedly, as soon as Apple upgraded, a large number of cracking cables priced around 10 to 20 yuan appeared in the Chinese market. The breakthrough occurred in Shenzhen, Huaqiangbi, China. Regarding the magical world of Huaqiangbi, I'll update another video to explain it in more detail. In Huaqiangbi, there is a cracking industry chain. Specialized crackers would be responsible for finding vulnerabilities in the Apple system, which would then be passed on to counterfeit chip manufacturers to design chips that could deceive the system in the data cable. Manufacturers would then use these chips to produce data cables. Faced with Huaqiangbi's counterattacks, Apple's programmers would also search for system vulnerabilities and patch them. Many people found that the 10 yuan cable they bought worked fine initially but stopped working after a system update. That's because the vulnerabilities had been patched. To continue counterfeiting, Huaqiangbi had to rely on hackers to find new vulnerabilities. Did you think battles at this level were discussions and battles between Wall Street elites, investment banking giants, and corporate alliances at negotiation tables and in courtrooms? In reality, it was a battle of programmers from both sides, competing with receding hairlines, a situation clearly not what Apple wanted to see. So, they quickly pulled out their ultimate move, price reduction. After 2014, Apple began reducing the supply prices of chips and other hardware and gradually decreasing the demanded share percentage. Question for everyone: if there's only a 20 yuan cracked cable and a 140 yuan genuine cable available in the market, which one would you buy? Many people would probably opt for the cheaper option. But what if there's a 20 yuan cracked cable, a 40 yuan authorized cable, and a 140 yuan official cable? In that case, many might choose the 40 yuan cable, right? Not only is it nearly as stable, safe, and close to the original as the official cable, but it's also 100 yuan cheaper. Buying it feels like saving 40 yuan, instantly maximizing the cost effectiveness. In consumer psychology, this is called the anchoring effect. Using this tactic, Apple gradually gained control of the situation. Though there were still various cracked cables available in Huaqiangbi, many major brands joined Apple's camp. By 2015, there were over 900 Apple-certified companies worldwide, with 700 in China. However, some companies tirelessly resisted Apple, and one of the leading names was Pinching. Pinching's boss began his journey in Huaqiangbi in the 1990s, a time when China hadn't yet joined the WTO, and awareness of copyright among entrepreneurs was generally weak. In 2004, Pinching had a legal battle with Sony. Sony developed a technology that allowed their cameras to recognize non-original batteries, and Pinching was one of China's largest camera battery manufacturers at that time. He believed Sony's use of this technology was unfair competition. Although Pinching lost the lawsuit, it didn't change his style of doing things. Later, when Apple started cracking down on counterfeit cables, he stood up against Apple. Before this incident, Pinching's annual revenue from digital accessories was just over 100 million yuan. However, after this confrontation, their revenue shot up to over 300 million yuan the following year. But this escalated the conflict between the two parties. When the price of MFI chips dropped, Pinching wanted to cooperate with Apple. However, not only did Apple decline, but they also took Pinching to court in 2017, resulting in the cancellation of 5 of Pinching's patents. But Pinching retaliated by taking Apple to court, accusing them of monopoly and seeking compensation of 1 yuan. Do you think Apple's behavior qualifies as a monopoly? I've also researched extensively, and I'll summarize for you. First, MFI certification is a quality audit standard for Apple phone data cables. Apple has the right to set standards, and to determine if they're monopolistic, we must see if they abuse their market position, deliberately suppressing and excluding other companies. In simple terms, if I want to apply for MFI certification today, and I don't even have a factory, it's reasonable for Apple not to grant me certification. But if a company meets all the criteria, and Apple denies them certification for personal reasons, that could be seen as a monopoly. Whether Apple didn't authorize Pinching due to Pinching's own capabilities or due to hidden factors remains unknown. I found a civil ruling on the China Judgment online platform, showing that in 2019, Pinching withdrew the lawsuit from the court. The specific reason? It wasn't disclosed. To this day, Pinching continues to manufacture unauthorized iPhone cables, which has become a significant reason for their falling behind. Because MFI certification isn't just for charging cables, it also includes power banks, earphones, and other products. Major overseas channels like Amazon have very strict restrictions on uncertified Apple accessories. Without certification, companies essentially miss the opportunity to enter high-end and international markets. The ups and downs of these cable companies are a microcosm of many Chinese enterprises relearning and adapting to international market rules over the 20-plus years since China joined the WTO. For a long time, many small and medium-sized Chinese enterprises profited by exploiting the gaps in intellectual property supervision. However, times have changed, and against the backdrop of economic globalization, China and its enterprises' roles are constantly evolving. The brute force growth approach of the past is no longer viable, especially for companies looking to do business with foreign corporations and penetrate international markets. That's all for today's sharing. See you next time, bye-bye.